Russia's Vladimir Putin is threatening nuclear war.
President Biden comes to Europe when nuclear war is a possibility.
Might be time to restock the fallout shelter. Vladimir Putin just threatened nuclear war.
Testing a missile capable of carrying a nuclear weapon more than 10,000 miles, nearly twice the distance from Moscow to Miami.
We would probably be looking at losses that we haven't seen since the Second World War.
The United States will go to war if necessary.
Hey, welcome back. It's Nick from Nuclear Bunker Living. Today, I want to discuss the subject, specifically right now with the backdrop of the world, with a lot of the other nuclear saber rattling with China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, whatever too. So today, I really want to focus on how to survive a nuclear attack, and specifically, we're talking about here in the United States. So right now, I am in a Titan 1. Okay, this particular complex is in Colorado, in the southwestern part of the United States. Let me tell you about this complex here. 9-foot thick epoxy hardened walls, 15,000 PSI. We're talking about 9-foot thick walls. Think about that, right? 3-inch rebar. It's literally a Faraday cage. It is an impenetrable fortress over here. This particular Titan 1 had 3 nuclear missiles over here. And it was decommissioned in 1965, and all 3 nuclear missiles were pretty much aimed at Moscow and St. Petersburg in Russia, in the Russian Federation over here. So that was during the Cold War. We now have Cold War 2.0, and there are a lot of things that are unraveling in real time over here. Right now, we've got the clash of China, we've got China and the United States. They will come to heads by at least 2025 to 2026. We've got Russia and Ukraine. We've got the drama over Taiwan. We've also got the rogue nation of North Korea, which I've visited, by the way. And we also have the Iranian situation too, where they also have nuclear weapons, or they are wanting to become a nuclear powerful nation, that is too. So today, let's talk about how you can survive a nuclear attack.
And Russia at war once again is bringing back Cold War concerns about the threat of its nuclear arsenal.
The Russian president said he will deploy tactical nuclear weapons to Ukraine's neighbor, Belarus.
President Putin telling Russian state TV it's a response to the UK supplying Ukraine with depleted uranium tank shells.
So nuclear war is now back in the realm of possibility. We almost have an axis on certain countries that are now basically forging their own little alliances. They want to take down the hegemony of the United States, that is, because the United States has been a superpower now pretty much since 1947, just after World War II, for example, over here. You know, with each country, for example, and let's go back in the history over here. So we had, we had the Spanish Empire, we had the Portuguese Empire, we had the Dutch Empire, then we had the 100 years of the colonial, the Great Britain Empire, and then we're now approaching almost 100 years of American hegemony, for example, in relation to its dominance on the global world stage. Every empire does come to an end. America now is about to be surpassed by China. I'm European, been raised in Australia, been living in the United States for over 25 years. I love the United States, but America's greatest enemy is from within. A lot of corporate greed, a lot of political wranglings, and there's great divisiveness here in the United States, for example, that's tearing this country apart. And on top of that, America used to be a country based on meritocracy, on the merit system over here, where it would reward capitalism, it would reward ambition and drive. But now, it's fast becoming a nation where, as an entrepreneur now, you're being attacked, for example, over here. So a lot of entrepreneurs now are going to flee overseas. But here in the United States, if we don't change course, then by 2027, China will overtake America, economically that is, and a country's not going to stop it just being the #1 economic giant of the world. They also want to be the top dog when it comes to the military as well too. Having said that, when you look at the actual cycles of empires, since 1500 AD, there's a 100-year reign. By 2027, if the United States does not change course, America will be #2. Having said that, there is something called the reserve currency of the world. America right now maintains the reserve currency of the world, which is the USD, the US dollar over here. That is oil, commodities, all sorts of things are basically traded and actually transacted in USD over here. That is artificially maintaining a level of buoyancy for the American economy. If America was to lose the reserve currency status of the world, it'll be a 20-year recession. I'll give you a perfect example over here. Prior to the USD becoming the reserve currency of the world, it was the sterling, it was the pound, it was the British pound. That was the reserve currency. When the Brits lost their reserve currency status, they entered a 15-20-year recessionary period over here. So right now, America has to make some very, very significant choices. China is very, very close to surpassing the United States. Now, having said that, have a look at this. There's a lot of nuclear saber rattling, okay, in Europe. We've got nuclear, we've got Russia and Ukraine. We have that one particular conflict over here. But we also have China, who wants to invade a sovereign nation of Taiwan. And we've got the United States and other NATO countries aligned in the Pacific, for example. They want to basically protect Taiwan, for example, over here. But what's going to happen is this. Russia will fight a conventional tactical nuclear war, for example, okay? Where I believe the Chinese will be more asymmetrical in relation to bioweapons, for example, and the use of electromagnetic pulse weapons, for example, EMP, that will knock out the grid. You'll have no phone, no cell towers, the internet's off, and effectively you have zero wall over here. So basically knocking out all the grids over here, we're back to like, you know, the 1800s over here, for example, over here. So there's a lot of things that are unraveling here. So today, because I feel that by 2025 to 2027, something is going to go down. And do you know how to protect yourself? How to prepare, for example? Like which regions in the United States, I will say the high-risk regions, and which regions are safe, for example. And it's not just nuclear fallout, for example. Where you can access your water from. Okay, there won't be any power. Do you know where to find a spring of water, for example, over here? Where to access water from the spring? Do you know where you can still use fertile land for agrarian purpose, for example, over here? So we're going to talk about all that today too, because this topic needs to be discussed right now. So let's get started. So the rise and fall of empires since 1500 AD. Now look at this line graph over here. We've got the United States in blue, and we've got China in red. And you can see this confluence, this convergence over here. China will surpass the United States unless the United States changes its course. By 2025, 2026, this will happen over here. But you can see this clearly, the rise and fall of empires. And just this week, Chinese President Xi Jinping recently told Vladimir Putin, he said the following: change that hasn't happened in 100 years is coming, and we are driving this change together. Well, obviously Xi was referring to the rise and fall of empires. Over the last 500 years, empires have switched roles every 100 years or so. The American empire will lose its hegemony soon, most likely before the end of the decade. China will be the number one economy, but the US will be a close second. Of course, number one economy will also eventually mean number one in many other areas: technology, finance, geopolitical influence, and military. So here it is. The real question is this: can the West let this transformation happen without World War III? What do you think? So first up, let's understand this. Let's talk about the global warhead inventory in relation to which countries in the world are nuclear powered and how many missiles they actually have. And with the global warhead inventory over here, the world's combined inventory of nuclear warheads remains at a very high level. 9 countries possess roughly 12,700 warheads as of 2022. That is, approximately 90% of all nuclear warheads are owned by Russia and the United States. Now have a look at this visual representation here from the Federation of American Scientists. You got the United States with 5,428 warheads and Russia with 5,977 warheads over here. You got the UK, France, Israel, Pakistan, India, China, and the rogue nation of North Korea. Almost 13,000 warheads. And the main core component of a warhead is uranium. And uranium, there's over 10 million tons in the world, enough to produce 10 billion bombs, equivalent to the one that was basically dropped on Hiroshima in Japan in 1945. And it's unimaginable to think that there are 35 million tons of uranium on Earth, which is enough to create the equivalent of 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. Think about that. And once again with uranium, look, it's a silvery white metallic chemical element in the other periodic table. with the atomic number of 92. So to understand the power of these weapons, okay, for every 50 nuclear missiles, that is 30 million individuals dead. 7.5 billion individuals could die just from the inventory of warheads amongst those nations that are nuclear powered. So when it comes to a nuclear detonation, there are 6 phases over here. So let's explore every phase right now. So 6 phases of nuclear detonation over here. We've got the bright flash, that initial bright flash over here, whether it's a ground burst weapon or an air burst detonation. It's going to cause temporary blindness for less than a minute. Then we have the blast wave, causing death, injury and damage to structures several miles out from the blast site. Then the radiation starts, damaging the cells of the body. Large exposures can cause radiation sickness. Then we have the oppressive fire and heat, causing death, burn injuries and damage to more structures. Then we have the EMP, the electromagnetic pulse weapon, damaging electronics, internet, cell phones, power, access to water, causing disruptions further out. And then we have a fallout period for weeks, if not months. You know, that radioactive visible dirt and debris raining down that can cause sickness to those who are outside. And it's that fallout that's going to contaminate the fertility of the soil. And if there's enough fallout, we then have that nuclear winter. And these are the areas in the United States that are most at risk. So which areas in the United States are most at risk? Well, most at risk of being targeted in a nuclear war is New York, Chicago, Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Miami, and Philadelphia. Obviously, the cities that have infrastructure are considered to be vital to the workings of the country, such as the financial centers, government agencies, and energy plants. And these are the nuclear power plants in particular states that will be targeted, absolutely. And there is a high risk of nuclear power plants being targeted in a nuclear war. And some of these larger targets include active nuclear plants, approximately 90 plants across the United States, some in Alabama, Arizona, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. And these are the land-based ICBM missile silos that will be targeted. US ICBM force consists of 400 combat-capable Minuteman III missiles, and they are located in the West, predominantly. We're talking about Colorado, Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. These clusters of land-based missile silos, these targets will be struck. Absolutely they will. And the Minuteman III land-based silos, they are active, okay? They're not decommissioned, they are currently active. And they serve as the main land-based ICBM force for the United States. So the first thing you want to take in relation to a nuclear detonation is you want to take one of these. This is potassium iodide. I use Thyrosep, for example, over here. You need these, right, because you need to protect the thyroid glands over here. Otherwise, it's thyroid cancer, okay? Now, if you recall back in the history over here, in 1986, there was the Chernobyl disaster over here. About 20 million potassium iodide tablets were dispensed to the local populace over here to protect them, for example. But a lot of the first responders, otherwise known as the liquidators, those who were basically putting out these fires, for example, dealing with radioactive material over here, a lot of them developed thyroid cancer. Why? Because they didn't have access to potassium iodide. So once again, too, if you want to find out about potassium iodide, there is a link in the description over here too, okay? It's potassium iodide. And in relation to nuclear detonation, where do you go in a radiation type emergency? Where to be during a radiation emergency, for example. So once again, we are seeking the epicenter of any structure, for example, or any basement or bunker underneath that respective structure over here. So it's a nice little easy visual aid that you can also teach your kids as well too. And in relation to nuclear fallout, these are the high risk states. What we are talking about, the high risk states, is Colorado, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. And on this visual representation over here, in red you have the major wildfires. In purple you have severe fallout, where you need to seek shelter for your survival for 3 weeks and above, for example. So let's talk about the environmental blowback over here in relation to the land, the fertility of the land. Obviously, this is going to involve a significant drop in global temperatures as black powdery amorphous carbons from the nuclear blast prevent sunlight from reaching the Earth's surface. That's what's called the nuclear winter, for example. And this may take 5, 7, 8, 9, or even 10 years, for example. This combined with reduced precipitation could severely impact food production, potentially resulting in mass starvation. And if the agricultural productivity refers to pre-industrial yields because of a nuclear strike, most countries will not be able to feed themselves. This is a really important factor over here. So where is the safest place in the United States? Well, here it is. We are talking about the following states: Maine, Oregon, Northern California, Idaho, southeastern New Mexico, and western Texas are some of the safest locales in the case of nuclear war due to their lack of large urban centers and nuclear power plants. There you go. Now, for areas that have not experienced any particular fallout, for example, and we've already discussed which areas are safe, next you want to find out is this: where can I find spring water to drink? The body needs water. Anatomically speaking, that is, you need water within a 3-day period over here, okay? Now, when the power's out because of the EMP pulse weapons over here, there's no water pumps here, so there is no water to get faucet, for example, over here. So you need to know where you can find spring water to drink, for example, over here. So once we've already defined the safest areas, next you want to go to the following website, findaspring.com, here in the United States, and it will tell you exactly with the GPS coordinates where you can actually find spring water. So in relation to this particular video, I'd love to hear your comments. Let's keep it very, very interactive over here, and let's immerse ourselves. And look, I know I've just covered the United States. If you would like me to cover for example, Asia or Europe or Australasia over here, we could do subsequent videos at a later date, for example, over here. So once again, too, I just want you to get prepared. I want you to start to think about the bigger picture, because there are a lot of things that are transpiring behind the scenes. And you need to read between the lines. Something is going to happen over here. It is going to happen. It's inevitable. Okay? We have the clash of empires, and we have a new empire that's emerging that wants to take the other one out. Once again, on behalf of Nuclear Bunker Living, thank you once again for your participation. Love the interaction, and we also thank you for your support. Thank you, guys.